We're in the rainforest at the Pacific Northwest, along the coast of Northern California. A couple of Bigfoot sighting reports intrigue us. We're looking around the area, hiking around. What's intriguing about these two Bigfoot sighting reports is they're by two unrelated motorists, and both of them saw Bigfoot one night after the other along the same stretch of Highway 101. Perhaps it was the same Bigfoot that both of these motorists saw. There's plenty of reasons for a Bigfoot to have to cross this highway to come out of the rainforests onto the beach. A bear will do it on lakes, rivers, and the ocean. A lot of goodies, a lot of food comes up onto shore, and if you're willing to swim a little ways out or dig a little bit along the shore, there is a lot of food resources. It really makes sense that the Bigfoot are sometimes coming down out of the rainforest along the beaches. Sightings weren't very far apart. They were only one night apart. One of them happened on September 20th. The other one happened on September 19th. The first Bigfoot sighting report was submitted by a 54-year-old witness that wants to go by HK. I stopped at a filling station, and the guy told me I was 50 miles from Crescent City. I traveled about 30 miles up 101 when this occurred. I am a 54-year-old salesman living in San Francisco. I have never had any interest in this subject until this week. An old friend of mine moved to Gold Beach, Oregon, and I was driving up to see him. I'd never been on Highway 101 and became nervous driving on the two-lane winding roads. I kept pulling over to let cars in back of me pass. At about 20 miles or so before Crescent City, I pulled off to allow cars to go by. As I went to pull back onto Highway 101, I heard the most horrifying scream that I'd ever heard. I screamed myself and ducked down in my seat. Looking up next to my Honda CR-V was a filthy-looking gorilla, best as I can describe. It instantly ran into the tree line a few feet away and vanished into the dense brush. I saw it for maybe 3 or 4 seconds at a quarter profile. I would say it was 6.5 feet to 7 feet high with a wedged head, and it had very dirty, matted, dark brown dull hair. Strangely enough, seeing the thing didn't frighten me, but the scream it gave, only a few feet from my open window, almost gave me a heart attack. I never heard a noise like that, and I never want to hear it again. That scream, it let out only a few feet from my car window, was the most terrifying thing that I've ever heard. Until that day, I never gave Bigfoot a second thought. I still don't really have any interest, but I never pull over on Highway 101 to let cars pass, or I may never go that way again. This happened around 1 in the afternoon, a very beautiful day, but it was in a shady area of the Redwoods. Very dense redwood forest in a part with only 2 lanes. There was a follow-up investigation report by BFRO investigator Richard Hucklebridge. Mr. H.K. called me tonight and we discussed his close encounter with what he now believes was a Sasquatch that was only 5 to 10 feet away from the open window of the passenger side door of the Honda CR-V. Mr. H.K. is from a highly populated area in the East Coast, and he has never considered the existence of Sasquatch. He went from a total non-believer to a believer because of this close encounter, and is still reeling from that incident today. This occurred in September at approximately 1:30 p.m. about 7 miles north of Klamath, California, northbound on Highway 101. Mr. H.K. pulled over on a wide spot off of a 2-lane section of Highway 101. This was not a regular pull-off area of the highway, and his right side wheels were off the roadway next to some brush and grass. He did this to allow faster-moving vehicles to pass him. As his vehicle came to a stop, the creature stood up between 5 and 10 feet from his open passenger window and screamed, per Mr. H.K., loud enough to be heard over a mile away, he said. The first thing that he did was to lie down across the front seat, and he also started to scream. He then sat back up to observe the creature. At that moment, he said, when he was scared out of his mind and thought he was going to have a heart attack. According to Mr. H.K., the sound emanated from the creature was like nothing that he had ever heard before. The volume was the loudest thing that he had ever heard, HK described the warbling, screaming sound as a woman combined with a whistling parrot sound with a high and low frequency that vibrated his body and soul. The noises were all integrated and seemed to be taking place at the same time. The vocalization lasted an eternity. Of the 5-6 second encounter, the creature took 2 large steps toward the large redwood trees, located approximately 15 to 20 feet from the paved road, made a semicircle around the nearest tree, and then disappeared. HK only saw the upper body because of the high brush and the vehicle door blocking his view. It was facing away from him, so he could only see the right back area of it. He did not see any facial features or its hands. Mr. HK described the creature as having very dirty, matted, dark brown, dull hair. He described the head as having a definite wedge on the top and having no neck. He further stated that the back of it had well-defined muscles, like Mike Tyson. He thinks that the creature stood about 6.5 feet to 7 feet tall and weighed over 300 pounds. He could not ascertain its gender, and he never made eye contact with it. HK never checked for footprints and stated he never wants to use the highway again. His only thoughts after the incidents was how he was going to call 911 for his heart attack. In summary, I believe that Mr. HK had a very close encounter with the Sasquatch creature. The sight of it didn't bother him as much as the screaming vocalization. Mr. HK has never ventured into the wilds, and now never wants to. He stated that the creature reminded him of a gorilla, and if he saw one in the zoo, he would just pass it for something more interesting. HK is still shaken up over the encounter, especially over the screaming sounds, and is having a difficult time trying to sleep at night. The one good thing that has come out of the incident is that he has gone to church for the first time in 37 years. Mr. HK found a similar sound wave on our sound site. Name of the scream is KLWave1.wave, but his scream was 50 times louder. The night after, the following sighting report happened. It was submitted by a witness that goes by CW. I was driving home on Highway 101 between Orick and Klamath. I have 4 high-powered off-road lights on my Jeep. So about 100 yards in front of me, I saw what I thought was a bear on the side of the road. When I got to be about 50 yards, the thing stood up, and my lights made a silhouette of what looked like a human. As I got closer, I could see a rough outline. My Jeep has 3-inch lifts, and this thing was much taller than my roof, which stands a good 6.5 feet off the ground. When I got to be about 20 yards from the creature, it took one leap off the side of the road and into the darkness. That is when the hair stood up on my neck, and I realized I just saw Bigfoot. I didn't stop because I was scared. It happened between 11 and 11:30 p.m. at night, bright moon and clear. There was another follow-up investigation by BFRO investigator Richard Hucklebridge. On the evening of September 30th, 2003, CW and I talked about his encounter with what he called a Bigfoot creature. As he was driving north on Highway 101, the location was about 14 miles north of Orick, California. The creature was squatting on the white line that's on the right side of the highway, next to the dirt strip that runs between the highway and the foliage. On the right side of the highway, there are many large redwood trees, and the terrain slopes down into a large valley away from the ocean. That is the direction the creature jumped and leaped. CW was about 100 yards from his encounter when he first noticed what he thought was a bear squatting in the road. As he moved a little closer, he then thought it was a person in a baseball catcher's crouch waiting for a pitch, and it was possibly facing him. He was only going about 30 miles per hour when he got to within 50 yards of the creature. That's when it stood up and then thought it was a very large hairy person. Within 20 yards of it, just before it jumped off the road, I could make out a rough hairy outline of the creature. That is when it took one leap or a large step off the right side of the highway and disappeared into the darkness. That's when I knew that I had just seen a Bigfoot. CW said that the bright lights on his off-road light bar were on, and he thought the creature was standing there holding its hands over its face trying to shield its eyes from the lights. He could only see the silhouette of it because it looked black and the background was also very black. I asked CW if he could make out any colors on the creature. He thought it was black, but the bright lights could have changed his perception of the color. I asked him how long he observed the creature. He thought the total time of the sighting was about 10 seconds in duration, and half of that time the creature was standing. I asked CW how tall it was and if he could estimate its weight. He said it weighed approximately 300 to 400 pounds, and the height of it was about 9 feet tall because its waist was over the hood of his Jeep. The top of my hood is over 4 feet from the ground due to the 3-inch lifts on the Jeep's suspension. I asked him if he could describe any parts of its body, arms, and legs. CW stated, the body seemed proportional to its legs, and the legs were built long and massive. He further stated, the neck was huge, and there was a space between the head and the large shoulders, and I noticed well-defined muscles on its shoulders. The hands were still covering its face. I asked CW if he could smell anything at the time of the encounter, and if he checked for footprints. No! I asked him if he ever told anyone, his parents, friends, or an agency. Yes, I told my parents and friends, but nobody would believe me. In summary, one of our BFRO investigators from Crescent City, California, made contact with CW shortly after the encounter, and they both went to the sighting area, but only the investigator checked for footprints. CW said it was never really believed in a Bigfoot creature until that late night encounter, and he's having a hard time trying to understand why his parents and friends will not believe what happened to him. These two reports could very well be the same creature, or maybe there's a family of creatures and it's two of the same family or pod. 2 sighting reports, 2 different unrelated individuals, 2 days in a row, nearly in the same area. I hope you enjoyed a little look into the area, the surrounding. We're going to be Bigfooting in this area because of the sighting reports. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching.